Is it in her blood? She's called Dr. D, and she is a guru, a kick-ass lady boss in D, diversity and inclusion. So do you think that when you were a kid, you were like, I'm going to grow up and fight for people's rights to be who they are? Or when did that come into your system, Missy?
Yeah, I think that I've always been that person. When I was young, I was always educating other kids, playing school, being the leader. So I think it is definitely something that has come natural to me. Always having a voice, even as a a small little thing. Always having the loudest voice, always seeking to educate. So yes, I would say it is definitely something that I always thought that I would do, and it just evolved over time, but it has always been there. Absolutely.
When's your birthday? What's your sign?
I am a Taurus, so I am a bull naturally.
I'm natural. So your mom's like, okay, this one's going to be a fighter. Watch
Yeah,
out, Trump. Yeah. So education, super important word that you were always educating. And so I think in your roles, and you can educate me on all the different roles and the different parts. I don't work in that field. I do more like the corporate advocacy side, but I don't actually work in a company and have to deal with all those humans. So you know humans very, very, very well. The education of why diversity is important, is that exhausting, or have you seen like huge changes in the last 10 years, either good or bad?
I would say over the last few years, we definitely have seen an uptick in it. So let's be clear, diversity, equity, and inclusion is not something new, right? It's just another name. It's just another title when we talk about our civil rights, our human rights, our racism, classism, sexism, ageism, all of those different things. So it's really bringing all of those different things back into focus, affirmative action and things that have happened in the United States over time. So it really is refocusing on those things. And yes, we have seen an uptick in the last 5 years on focusing on those things, but these are things that have always been there, things that organizations have always looked to implement one way or another, some successful, some not so successful. Since 2020 and the death of George Floyd, we started to see an uptick in kind of DEI trending. So a lot of organizations wanting to be, as our President Trump would say, woke. They want to be woke, right? So, but a lot of organizations
so woke, eh?
right.
Oh my God.
So we've seen a lot of organizations kind of jumping on that bandwagon of DEI in 2020. And now we kind of see a lot of those, with the current administration, with things changing, starting to roll back those efforts and those conversations changing. We see the narrative around DEI changing. So I think it is important that we continue that education of truth of what DEI is, how it is not new, and something that continues to evolve and will continue to evolve. There is no question, there's no debate when it comes to human rights. What is right for human, regardless of your race, regardless of your background, life choices, what have you, what's right for humans. And that's never up to debate, no matter what we decide to call it.
I love, yeah. So when we do all the isms, yeah, and then it reminds you of like, oh my God, there's just so much hate and distrust of the other that I swear, I think the Buddhists do it better. You know what I mean? Like there's like 98 religions in the world and they all hate somebody else. Like what the hell is the point of religion if it's like they grow their hair wrong and eat the wrong kind of animal? Like, do you think this is totally, it's not off topic, but like, do you think that a shift in like religious and people becoming more spiritual and more, there's a lot of aliens flying around on the East Coast of America like 2 months ago, right? Like if you think like people becoming more worldly is going to shift that, or is it like, is religion the fault of this? Is it humans that are the fault of this? Like, why are we such isms?
Yeah, and I think that religion is the same thing. People who are different or don't agree with you, they, you know, there is negativity toward them. There is, you know, they're wrong. They are, you know, different, which meaning that it's not right because my religion or my background is right. And that's the same thing. You can't, when we think about DEI, we can't say, well, only this religion matters, or we're only going to focus on this religion, but we're not going to focus on race. We're not going to focus on gender. We're not going to, you know, so you can't really do that. It really kind of defeats the purpose. And I think that when we think about how we got here, and it's really based on greed, right? It's based on, it's a financial strategy. When we think about race and racism, and how it came to be, we go all the way back in the United States to slavery, and it really was about, you know, money, income, property, and things of that nature, and really using that the cheap labor to kind of finance America. And that's really how it came to be. So, you know, when we think about that, and we think about that class system and saying, well, people that look like this are less than people that look like this, or, you know, women are less than men. And, you know, so just having that hierarchy kind of is where we get all of, you know, the turmoil. And I think then it becomes a matter of privilege and power. So then we start grabbing at different things and wanting to have more privilege. So if I am this, then I'm more than you. So I get more privilege than you in society. I have more power than you in society. And I think people are constantly, if they are not born in that power realm, which is usually white and male, then we are doing things to acquire that, whether it is through our education, whether it's through where we live, whether it's through the jobs that we have, where we, you know, where we decide to socialize. We're all kind of grabbing at those things that represent power and privilege in our society.
Which represent food on my table. Like if we're going back a little while, until 100 years ago, my God, people were hungry on this earth, and half the world still is hungry on this earth. I am not. My biggest problem is that I eat too many cookies. Like that's the white privileged problem that we're facing. But if power gets you food and shelter and survival, it makes sense that humans want to survive. So it's like survival is a normal thing. But then when it's like the greed of it, and so isn't it the fault of the system, the economic system that encourages greed? Because I'm from Canada. Nobody I know is wealthy. We're all middle class, and some of my friends were working class, if you want to say that, but we all had almost everything that we needed. And it's like in America, you go to LA, you know, like we can't even, and the Europeans can't even imagine what America is like the land of the free, where you got like a guy under a bridge that is dying of diabetes. So is there any hope for America, or does it have to be a total shift of the consumeristic capitalist system if you want any of these isms to go away?
Yeah, and I think is there hope? Yes, right. So there's always hope at the end of the tunnel. And we just never know what's going to happen next. So that's where we are in America. We just like on the side, on the edges of our seats. We don't know what's going to happen yet, but there's always hope. And what our current administration is doing is rolling back those things that gave us hope and those things that gave us protection. Those things are slowly being rolled back. When we look at a lot of our social systems, our healthcare systems, they just decided to cut Medicare, SNAP benefits, that's food services for those who are hungry. And, you know, a lot of those things for people that are less fortunate, those people that don't have food on their tables, those people that may have disabilities or mental health that doesn't allow them to go out into the workforce and earn, those people that may be sleeping under bridge but still eligible for food benefits or housing benefits if they want them, and different things like that. So those things are starting to be rolled back. The narrative around things like DEI is starting to be villainized, or, you know, starting to be looked at as a negative, where, you know, DEI is not about merit. DEI is about giving people who are unqualified an opportunity, right? But it seems that being unqualified are people of color or people with disabilities, and not necessarily people with education, degrees, and experience, right? So when we look at changes in our administration, we see nepotism. So people that are related or have some kind of relationship with the president being promoted and given high positions without the experience. So we see a lot of that miseducation, a lot of kind of trying to form perspectives, taking history, Black history and things that matter to America out of schools to continue to control mentally what people think, what they know. Because if we don't know, then we are, we will repeat it. If we don't know our history, we will repeat it. And some of us know where we've been without our civil rights and without having certain protections and programming that kind of level that field of equity. So we are hoping that, we are continuing to fight for our democracy in this country and continuously fighting for those protections for people that are more vulnerable. So I think that there is hope, but there's a fight. There is a fight, and it's not the first time that Americans had to fight for equal and civil rights.
So the question is, with great privilege, great power comes responsibility. And I, as a privileged white woman who grew up in Canada, it's like, try to tell us, I recognize we have different backgrounds and we look different, and I have never faced anything that you would have had to face as a woman of color. It's like, how does it work when you try and get like white girls to be on the side of, do we feel threatened as well, just as like our white brothers do? Because we have very high privilege as well, and we don't want to share our spots either, but we're always blaming the white male. So like, I'm just wondering how you see in general, like allies with other women of influence in the States that you have met in your years of work. Are we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when it comes down to that, there isn't one answer for the whole group, right? Everybody has different experiences and everybody embraces it differently. I think that people are less overt in their true feelings around diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially when you go into an organization that says they are supporting it. So I don't think people are directly against it, but when it comes to their actions, they're not, demonstrating it with intention. So they're not wholeheartedly accepting it into the way in which they do things. And you still can see glimpses of it come up and manifest in communication and conversations. So I think it isn't as blatant as some of the things we're seeing now with our administration. So ask us in a few months how blatant it becomes. But in the past, I haven't seen it be as blatant as it is and may start to be now, that the administration is supporting these thoughts and ideologies against diversity, against equity, and against having, integrating so that everybody has an opportunity. So as we start to see that permission to say, hey, you don't have to, be involved with this wokeness, and then I think people will start to be more vocal around how they actually feel about these things. And I think we've seen them, like I said on LinkedIn, people inbox me all the time and say, well, where would you be without DEI? I'll be right here where I am, because I am educated. I do have.
I'd still be your boss, motherfucker.
Right, exactly. And, so I think that now there is a voice in office that is supporting these ideologies. We will see more people starting to express those feelings more overtly.
So I'm kind of specialized in imposter syndrome. And it's like, I've been to like around the world. I hate Canada, too much snow, good healthcare, but just too cold, too depressing. So I've been everywhere, and everywhere I've gone, every woman I've met, except for Nigerians, actually have imposter syndrome. And so if you take the average thing that society and capitalism and Instagram tells you that you're not enough because your butt's too big, your skin's the wrong color, and your forehead is too long, exhibit A, right? You're not enough. And then you add onto that, like, you were only hired because you look different. Like, have you not wanted to stab so many people? Like, are there like DEI advocates in jail for cutting off the organs of people? Like, I would be so infuriated. I would don't have the resilience or the kindness or the patience of, I just don't have the resilience of someone of color, because we don't know what it feels like. And we would just collapse and be like Karens, right? Oh my God, don't treat me that way. You have no idea what it's like to be mean, Karen, so shut the fuck up, right?
Absolutely. And I'm gonna say yes, it really is hard, and it is a real mental challenge in order to remind yourself that, yeah, I am enough. And I think that, and even with my experience over the years, and before I really became aware of the world and the world around me, it's like, okay, you go to school, you get your bachelor's degree, but you're still not getting, the things that they said you should get in college. So you say, I need more. I get a master's degree. I need more. I get a doctorate degree. And then you start to realize it doesn't matter how much more I am. It's because it's not about that. It's because of how society has seen me. It's because of the identity that society has put on me as an African-American woman. So then you become aware that it's not you, it's society. And I think that allows you to deal with those pressures a little bit more. And really not allowing those, those societal pressures to really define you. So, defining yourself, but I have been caught in that and just needing to be more. And I think we see that. We see a lot of highly educated women of color wanting more education. And I'm like, why? Why do you need to be more? Why do you need to get another certificate? And I know why, because I've been in that situation, because you just don't feel like you're enough. And you get that feedback. You don't have leadership presence. You're not a good fit. But what is a good fit? And I don't think that a lot of people analyze what a fit is, what a leader should be, but we have that idea in our head. So when you see somebody like me come in, she's Black, she's short, because height has a thing about it.
And too beautiful, girl. That's probably your only problem.
Right. She's a woman, and then all those stereotypes that she's probably hard to get along with, or she's probably, so even women, once we get into that leadership space, you also become a target. You are constantly being challenged for your intellect, the decisions that you make, and how you go about things. If you are not as accommodating and people pleasing, then that is also creates a target. If you are direct and straightforward in your communication, that as a leader, that also makes you a target, because people feel as though that you should be a certain way, and even just thankful that you are in this position. So, so the way that you lead also becomes a target. So I think that once we become aware of the world around us and what those identities mean, then we can start to have that self-talk with ourselves that it's not true.
My boyfriend, he's half Nigerian. And this man is so resilient. He doesn't give a crap what anyone thinks. And I'm like 42. And I just, like, in the last couple of years went like, I don't care what people think about me. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm a therapist. I traveled. I was listing all my, I hate to admit it, and I did a lot of work on this, but like all the reasons why I should be better up here, because I've studied this, I've studied culture and television, I've studied this. And he's just a guy that grew up in a very hard childhood as a half Black kid in a white society. And he had no choice but to learn to accept himself and to tell everyone in society that, right? So there's something that when people of color, diversity, inclusion is, and equity is, it's like so strong. Why wouldn't we want those? If you asked a 3-year-old and you're like, hey, do you want someone who's resilient, who knows how to lead, who doesn't give a shit what other people think because they've had to deal with a lot of like isms in society, who's smart, who has to work twice as hard to get where white old men are? Do you want that person in the position? Yes, they seem like they have like 3 times as many qualifications.
Yeah.
And it's like the opposite. And it's like, it's just fear, isn't it? It's like, we fear that person is 5 times better than us, or all we hear is like white God saying they're the wrong color. Like a kid would never be racist because they just don't think like us biased pieces of it. So
and I agree. It is definitely the conditioning of it all when we think about our society. And I think when we think about America, we see America evolving, and we see the minorities people of brown and Black backgrounds becoming the majority, becoming the most educated, and being able to acquire that power. That's why we see what's going on in the US today, when they are wanting to roll that back, because they see that power shift and it's coming, and they're not ready for that. They're not ready for that. We had Kamala Harris be the first vice president on her way to presidency, and it's like, no, we got to snatch it back, and we don't care if it go to hell in a handbag when we snatch it back. But that's what's happening. And working in DEI, or working in this space and advocating for civil rights, advocating for equal opportunity, it is very disheartening all the time, even before this, because you see a lot of people not being courageous enough to do the work, or only wanting to do this work, or do it very performatively. So it has always been disheartening, but now it's just outright heartbreaking for the work that I do. And to lose work as working with federal contracts, so to lose work as a contractor just because someone is saying the work that you do is discrediting the work. It really is heartbreaking, because and we all know deep down, as you said, this is only to make our society better for everyone. And we all deserve, and we know how deep seated these things are, and that we're fighting. So it is absolutely heartbreaking. However, having hope that we can change it, that we can, hold on, is, all that we have. And we know where we come from, right? So we know how we had to fight for civil rights. We know about Jim Crow. We know about slavery. So we know that it's in us to continue to, hold on to that and make sure that we have progress. But it's going to take some work right now. And I think the newer generations just haven't seen that work in play. They've gotten comfortable with, how society is. And, but I think now it's time for us to get ready to fight for what we believe in.
Fight, because as I follow women like you on social media, and I see these women who are in positions of power, working with governments that influence a lot of people, it's like, you can't, if you have the roles that you have, you can fight from within the system. But when they take that role away, now you have to fight from outside the system, which now it becomes, I don't like the word bloodier, but it becomes a real fight, because they just built more of a wall.
Absolutely.
Walls, right?
Yeah. So and instill fear. So if you and we see this with Target and Walmart, where there's been groups that have gone around and said, look, if you continue to focus on DEI, you're going to be sued, you're going to be this, right. And so there's a fear to even talk about DEI, to even, so that fear is being instilled in people as well. And it's just really, really, really sad.
Oh my God. Going to Canada. I'm so sorry. It's cold, but
I'm coming. It's cold here too in upstate New York. So I'm only like an hour and a half away from Niagara Falls, Canada. So
it's so funny, because the way you are socialized, like, Canadians don't have much an idea about anything in the world. You've been to Canada?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. If you live there and you grew up there, it's like, I have a friend, we just did a women's conference, and she, wow, she grew up in Canada as a like a Black girl. I don't know what her origin is. And then she said when she was 12, when she moved to the States, is the first time she realized she was Black. Because, and I just went like, because I have no idea as a white girl what that even like means. And then my brain went like, wow, like Canada really, my best friends were like Sri Lankan and from Iran. My first boyfriend was Nigerian. You know what I mean? Like, I never really realized it. It is so beautiful. And it's because the policies did it. It wasn't because we're such great people. You know what I mean? Like, we're probably just as crappy as any Joe Blow from like any country you can pick in the world. We have our evil and our good inside of us. But the policies made us into more conscious, kinder, more open people. And then you do that for 30 years. And then suddenly, like, you are that person, and your kids you're not allowed to say, remember we used to do like a lot of things when we were kids that you're never allowed to say ever again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, and it's that accountability piece. And that's where the government and the policies come in, is holding people accountable for a culture where people can thrive. And right now we have been stripped. We are being stripped, or we are in the process of being stripped of that accountability piece that says you can't treat people like this. You can't discriminate against people. You can't harass people. You cannot give people opportunities. And that is where we're being stripped of those things.
But that's just, if you like read this story to a child, they'd be like, I don't understand why you do so much work in a country and then take it all away. Like, what the hell? Like, I'm just horrified at that. I don't know if it's all him or if he's got some evil friends, but if it's all him, then oh my God.
We know his friends are evil. We know that. And robotic. So
they're evil men. There are really, I have a student, he's like 12, and we were talking about philosophy the other day. Kid's obsessed with money. He's not allowed to have a cell phone. This kid's probably going to be a bad kid. I don't know, but he's so smart he can manipulate me. He's super clever. And we were talking about if humans are good or bad. And at 12 years old, he's like, they must be bad, because why else would we have to socialize them to do good? And I went, oh, that's so, like, I've always thought, because I'm Canadian, people are good. I don't have to lock my door, right? Like, it really depends on
some
what
people are people, and some good, some bad. But I always like to see people as having both, right? So being two-sided, being good, being bad. Some are more bad than others, some are more good than others, but all have the capacity and the ability to be both, or either.
So should we pray? I grew up in the church. Should we be praying for the bad ones, or should we be hoping that they get hit by a car?
Both.
I pray that he gets hit by a car and he's reincarnated as a dog in China, because they have a dog eating festival in China, right? And then he'll learn something.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Well, strategy, fight, and also maybe some compassion in there makes good advocates, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you for your work. I'm so sorry that you faced this. I can't even imagine. And when I saw your post, I got so many, it makes me cry. And it's just so unfair. And the post that you speak about, it's like something that, well, humbly saying, and we have no idea. And so we need you to be like, wake up, sister. Like, we can't let this happen, because it gets too plushy and the privileged get too privileged. And it's, I don't know, I think we should.
And it's not just a word. It's not just a thing. It affects people's lives, their livelihood, the careers, and, it's affecting people at work when they're communicating socially. So it's just not one of these buzzwords. It's an actual thing. And it is something that is one of the cornerstones of our society. So it is so dangerous. The rhetoric and, the cutting back of programs and the funding sources. So, but, there is hope. And that's one thing that I, myself personally, and I know people like me, will never give up on.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I know, not for my side, but thank you for fighting, because most people will never fight. And I probably wouldn't be brave enough to fight either. So thank you for fighting.
Thank you. And thank you for having me and having this very authentic talk with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I will get goosebumps looking at your thing, and I will do my little part. I don't know. There's a lot to be talked about as well. There's millions of conversations on this topic. This is the crux of like humanness, how we treat other people that are different than us. And the world is a piece of poo-poo because we treat other people badly. And if we don't start to look at that as humans, well, I don't know what our future is. So we have to start talking about all this stuff. So
we do.
It's just nobody wants to, because it makes us uncomfortable. And then we turn the channel and we look at the other way when someone's weird and uncomfortable to us and goes against our beliefs. We are just little babies that don't want to face what life is about and what humanity is about. I just want to sit, watch Netflix, eat my cookies, get my salary, and have a nice life until stroke. And it was fast, but that's not going to happen. So
we have to, we all, and I think that here in our country, some of us have gotten so comfortable with this stuff, and now it's hitting us hard, and we We got to, I don't know if you heard of Kendrick Lamar at the Super Bowl, but we got to turn those TVs off. And we need to, we need to step up and, do what we have to do to just maintain our basic human rights, the basics.
Even the word entitled, right? Like if you think the white has the privilege and the entitled, but we don't even use that word anymore. White people don't use that word anymore. It's out of our language because it just became who we are. And if you use it, it's just like, oh, entitled teenagers. And you're like, no, you're an entitled teenager that has a big belly and no hair anymore. And you're just the same as that 16-year-old. But you don't realize it anymore, right? And anyone who wants to fight you is now an angry bitch because they have their own problem. No, they're fighting. It's just, I just want them to be oppressed for 2 million years. Is that not a fair thing? Like we were oppressed for 2 million years, women. How about those guys just become oppressed for 2 million years, and then in 2 million years we'll decide which one was better.
Right, exactly. Yeah, let you go.
Fair, no?
They see it coming on. They see us women. They see us women of color. Stepping up to the plate, and they would rather just throw the whole country away.
And they have enough money, they can just go live in Hawaii or somewhere where it's not so, or where they have more power, like Thailand. You see that place, you'll appreciate this, but like I lived in a lot of these countries and you see these old white dudes that like would never get a date.
Yeah,
in like North America, and over there, because they have white privilege, they're like king shit. And you're like, that is just the most blatant proof of status. And they're like, oh, she loves me. I'm like, she doesn't love you, you're a loser. And she's with you for status. Smart girl. I'm like applauding her. Like,
and they get over here. That's 90 Day Fiance. I don't know if you ever seen that show, but that's what they talk about.
Yeah, good for them. Okay, well, I took too much of your time. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Wednesday in America.
Yeah, we're still surviving. So
they're not going to win because then they can't win.
Absolutely, they will not.
They will not. Okay, Dr. D. Bye.
All right, thank you, Jessica. This has been fun. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.